the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Ohio Public Radio's Bill Cohen this week, Daryl Rowland, Public Affairs Editor for the Columbus Dispatch, Julie Carr-Smythe, State House Correspondent for the Associated Press, Greg Haas, Democratic Strategist, and Mark Weaver, Republican
Day
Strategist.
before October surprise, the Strickland administration's Public Safety Department is in trouble again. The Columbus Dispatch reported Thursday 2 top attorneys in the office were ousted after officials say they were intercepting emails between public safety workers and the State Inspector General and the Dispatch. Daryl Rowland, your newspaper's been all over this. You broke the latest story here. This isn't the first time the department has been involved in a scandal. So is there much political fallout from this likely?
Well, that's one of the big questions we'll see over the next month. This probably has the biggest impact politically, I would say, is that this is a reminder of all those things that you listed and has gone on with this same department. The aborted contraband sting at the governor's office, illegal immigrants being given license plates and goofy contracts and all that. It's just kind of another reminder. From what we know so far, it appears as though Josh Engel, who was the chief legal counsel and then busted down for a past indiscretion, was doing this on his own. We talked to all the directors during his tenure. We talked to the governor's office. They purport no knowledge, no authorization at all of this. So far, there's been no information to contradict that. We'll see. For once, the Strickland administration acted forthrightly and quickly to stem the bleeding, as opposed to Helen Jones Kelly, who ran the records checks on Joe the plumber. She was kind of left to dangle out there, and that story just kind of went on and on. They really moved to cut it off quickly this time.
I've heard Republicans say it wasn't so quick. Mark Weaver?
Well, this is a problem for Ted Strickland. The election's about the economy, let's be real clear here. But it is a very big reminder of how poorly the governor has managed his administration. This is one of his top lawyers. This is somebody who should have been fired months ago when it turned out that he tried to set up the Inspector General's office and they demoted him instead of firing him. So the mistake here is, I don't know that Ted Strickland had any idea that this fellow was doing this. What I do know is Ted Strickland could have fired him when we saw that he was acting inappropriately and didn't. He'll be held accountable for that.
It's a serious issue. And by the way, I think that when a guy's a Harvard Law grad, you're the lawyer, but when a guy's a Harvard Law grad and he's applying for a job in the Senate Minority Caucus, it's probably a flag, I'd have to confess. But I ultimately think that, first of all, this pales in comparison to a chief of staff who's taking gifts from a person who's hanging art on the wall at their home at state expense because it's an investment. It pales in comparison to a number of scandals that went on for a long time. And I think that Governor Strickland has moved fast in comparison to any other administration I know. Every administration gets accused of not moving fast enough in terms of scandals, Democrat and Republican. But when it came to Mark Dan, when it's come to a number of scandals in other departments, they've moved fast. For whatever reason, this department has moved slow, and I freely admit that. But I think in terms of and dealing with a number of issues in development and in other departments, this administration has been very thorough and very quick in terms of comparison to any of the other administrations.
Just to be fair, on the earlier incident involving Josh Engel and the alleged setup with the Inspector General, frankly, that came out in Senate testimony, but that ended up as sort of a he said, she said. It was a meeting between two people, no other witnesses.
When they demoted him, they thought he did something wrong, and the better choice would have been to fire him.
But on a he said, she said, I think, you can certainly question all of that. Obviously, even in the he said, she said, there was confession of error on his part.
This is kind of detailed and complex. Right. Is it inside baseball? Does the average citizen really care about this? Can it be made into an effective anti-Strickland 30-second TV spot, or is it too complex for that?
But it wasn't the front page of the Columbus Dispatch.
Did you say it was off message?
It's off message. The economy is the message. Voters care about what's happening in their pocketbook and their wallet. They don't care about other things.
So you would tell Kasich lay off on this?
I would. It's not
which is what he did, but
it's not appropriate for that.
But I do think that what's worrisome here is that Engel perhaps was being looked at himself by the Inspector General, and if he was reining in those emails in the midst of an investigation, and something blows up bigger in terms of, charges or something, then that could come back to law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, it is off message. I'm glad to hear Mark say that, because the message is the economy. For the governor, it's making sure people know that Youngstown is the #1 city in terms of manufacturing by the Brookings Institute, that Cleveland and Toledo are areas of growth, and he's got to get that message out, and we got to fight this out over the economy.
Okay, time now for our final off-the-record comments. Mark Weaver, you're first.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was in Ohio the past week. Why should we care? Well, because it's going to give you a preview of what Governor John Kasich is going to be like. Chris Christie had to deal with a big budget deficit in New Jersey. He spoke bluntly. The people are on his side. He got it done. That's a preview of the Kasich administration.
Greg Haas, your predictions?
Well, I have to quickly react to that since I get a chance in the follow-up. I think that the Christie campaign ran a detailed campaign about what they were going to do. One of the most important things about being able to do anything is to be clear about it, and John Kasich hasn't been.
Julie Carr-Smythe.
Given all these wildly swinging polls, I'm going to go out there and say we may be heading toward a statewide recount in this governor's race if things don't settle in pretty soon, if it's close enough.
That would be something like, what, 0.25% difference? Or that's when you have a recount, right?
Right.
100%.
And we're seeing the polls going 1% Strickland, 1% Kasich, just depending on what happens in the next few weeks.
Wow. And Darrell Rowland.
I'm going to bang on the same drum I banged on for 3 shows in a row here. Has raised in a small town church, we had sins of omission as well as commission. These candidates for governor are running the most issues-free campaign I think we've seen in modern Ohio history, especially on the budget, the most crucial short-term issue facing this state. Somebody's China is going to get broke, either through tax increases or cuts to schools, colleges, prisons, mental health, what have you, and they're not saying a word about it specifically.
And I will predict that next week Mike Thompson will be back in the host chair. That's Columbus on the Record for this week. Please check us out online. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can connect to all of that on our website. That's wosu.org/COTR. I'm Bill Cohen. Have a good week.
Test your knowledge.
Let's move to this 10-pointer.